The deputy's thick finger hovered over the laptop screen, then tapped firmly. Look at this frozen frame, someone in a dark hoodie, definitely spray painting your garage, ma'am. The timestamp shows this happened at 1:13 a.m. last Tuesday. Patricia Dunor, self-appointed queen of Maple Grove Estates HOA and enforcer of all things dull and uniform, shifted uneasily in her cheap plastic chair. The harsh fluorescent lighting of the sheriff's office made her complexion look even more ghostly. Yes, officer, that's the vandalism I reported. It's clearly my neighbor, Tom Garrison. He's been a headache since day one. I leaned back slightly, barely suppressing a grin as I pulled out my phone. Deputy Martinez, before we continue, you should see the full footage from my security cameras. I have 8 cameras covering every inch of my property, including a perfect view of Patricia's driveway. Patricia's eye twitched ever so slightly, a tiny giveaway, but after 2 decades in cybersecurity, I noticed every subtle tell. What Patricia didn't realize when she filed this bogus complaint, I said, swiping open the video app on my phone, is that my camera system uploads footage instantly to the cloud, with some seriously impressive zoom features. The deputy took my phone and raised an eyebrow as he watched. On screen, the same hooded figure from Patricia's doorbell camera appeared, but from a different angle. My camera caught the person strolling past my house toward Patricia's garage, spray can in hand. Zoom in on that timestamp, 1:09 a.m., I said, pointing. The deputy pinched the screen, magnifying the infrared image. There, under the glow, were a pair of monogrammed gardening gloves, embroidered with the initials, PD, in elegant cursive. Patricia's breathing grew shallow. Those could belong to anyone, she said quickly. Keep watching, I urged calmly. The figure reached Patricia's garage and sprayed large, angry letters, "Wah sucks." Then something unexpected. A breeze swept the hood back for a fleeting moment, revealing platinum blonde hair and sparkling rhinestone cat-eye glasses. Watch this part closely, I said. The figure glanced around nervously, giving a perfect profile shot, pointed nose, thin lips, the exact same gaudy earrings Patricia wore at every HOA meeting. The deputy paused the video and looked up at Patricia, who was now gripping the table edge so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ma'am, this looks like you vandalizing your own garage. That's ridiculous, she snapped, her voice rising. Why would I do that to myself? I reached into a folder I'd been building for 6 months. Deputy, I can explain. Here are the 37 HOA violations Patricia has filed against me, from my mailbox being the wrong shade of brown to a garden gnome facing the wrong way. The deputy flipped through the papers, disbelief growing on his face. A fine for grass that's 3.2 inches instead of 3 inches. That's just the start, I said. Last month at the HOA meeting, I suggested easing some of these ridiculous rules. Patricia didn't like it, she said, and I quote, "I'll make sure you never feel welcome in this neighborhood." Patricia's face flushed purple. You can't prove I said that. Oh, I can. I pulled out my phone again. I've been recording the HOA meetings, one-party consent state, perfectly legal. I played the audio. Patricia's shrill voice filled the room. Tom Garrison thinks he can waltz in and change everything. Well, I'll see to it he never feels welcome here. I'll find a way to get rid of him if it's the last thing I do. The deputy's expression hardened. He turned to Patricia. Ma'am, please stand and put your hands behind your back. What? You can't be serious. I'm the victim here. Ma'am, you filed a false police report and tried to frame your neighbor for vandalism. That's a felony. He produced handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. As the deputy read her Miranda rights, I couldn't help but reflect on how it all began. Moving into Maple Grove Estates seemed smart. Nice homes, good schools, quiet streets. I just didn't expect Patricia Dunor's HOA tyranny. My first violation came 1 week after moving in. My moving truck was parked in my driveway for 4 hours and 37 minutes, 37 minutes over the HOA's 4-hour limit on commercial vehicles. The fine was $200. I tried to reason at the next HOA meeting. Patricia sat at the head of the table like a monarch, glasses perched low as she sifted papers. Mr. Garrison, she said without looking up, the rules are clear. Commercial vehicles lower property values. Your fine stands. It was a moving truck. I was literally moving here. Exceptions lead to chaos, she dismissed with a wave. Next. That was just the beginning. Violations piled up. Trash cans visible 17 minutes too long, porch light too bright, purple flowers instead of approved white or yellow. I stayed patient, paid fines, and documented everything. I installed security cameras, not just for safety, but to protect myself from Patricia's ever more creative harassment. That investment paid off big. The night of the vandalism, I was up working on a cybersecurity project when I noticed movement outside at 1 a.m. My security app showed a hooded figure on the sidewalk. Something about their gait seemed familiar, but I didn't think much of it until the next morning. At 6 a.m., Patricia was pounding on my door, theatrics fully engaged, tears, wringing hands. "Tom, someone vandalized my garage, spray-painted awful things about the HOA. It's personal." I followed her outside. "HOA sucks," was sprayed in big red letters on her pristine white garage door. Her husband Gerald, usually quiet, stood awkwardly nearby. "I've called the police," Patricia announced loudly, "and I have doorbell footage. Someone in a dark hoodie came from your house, Tom." That's when I knew she was setting me up. The way she emphasized, "your house," for neighbors to hear, the tears, the conveniently vague doorbell footage, enough to raise suspicion but not to ID anyone. "Terrible," I said, playing along. "I hope they find who did it. My cameras cover the street, I'll share footage with police." Her face shifted through expressions before settling on forced gratitude. "Thank you, that would help." I spent the next hour reviewing my videos, and hit the jackpot. Not only did I catch Patricia vandalizing her own garage, I also saw her preparing the setup. She walked past my house twice to get caught on what she thought was my only camera, the front door one. What she didn't know, I had recently upgraded to 8 cameras covering overlapping zones. The footage showed it all. Patricia sneaking out back, putting on hoodie and gloves, practicing past my house, actually spray painting her garage, and then hiding the spray can in her pool house. I backed everything up and waited. By afternoon, Patricia called an emergency HOA meeting. The community center was packed, scandals draw neighbors like moths. At the podium, Patricia's voice shook with faux outrage. "My home was vandalized last night. This is what happens when troublemakers invade our community and rules are ignored." She clicked to blurry doorbell footage. "This shows the perp coming from Mr. Garrison's house at 1:13 a.m., minutes before the vandalism." Neighbors glanced at me as I calmly sat in the back. "Mr. Garrison has openly defied our HOA rules," she continued. "He wants to tear down the system. Who better to vandalize than an anarchist?" That's when I stood. "Patricia, I'm sorry about your garage. Since you mentioned your doorbell footage, may I share mine? It might add context." Her smile sharpened. "Of course, Tom, let's see what you've got." I connected my laptop to the projector. The room fell silent as I played the first clip. "This is from my driveway camera at 12:58 a.m., no movement on the street." "Now, here's 1:05 a.m. A figure slipped from shadows between Patricia's house and her neighbors, avoiding streetlights." "Your doorbell footage shows someone walking past my house at 1:13, I said, syncing the footage from multiple cameras. "The hooded figure came from Patricia's backyard, not mine. But here's the kicker," I said, clicking the next clip. "This wide-angle camera covers Patricia's driveway and garage." Gasps filled the room as the video showed the figure spray painting Patricia's garage. "But wait," I said, zooming in, "look at these gloves, monogrammed PD." Patricia froze, her expression stunned. "And here," I said, playing the moment wind blew the hood back, "rhinestone cat-eye glasses just like the ones Patricia wore last HOA meeting." The room erupted, some laughing, some angry. Gerald buried his face in his hands. "This footage is doctored," Patricia blurted. "He could have faked this," she insisted. "That's a fair question," I replied calmly. "Which is why the sheriff's department has the original files for forensic review." "And Patricia," I added, "you might want to check your pool house. Footage shows you hiding the spray can there at 1:27 a.m. That was Patricia's biggest mistake. Instead of staying silent or getting a lawyer, she lashed out. "You've been stalking me," she screamed, pointing at me. "This is harassment. I'll sue for invasion of privacy. Recording your own property in the public street is legal," a voice said from the back. Patricia turned as Deputy Martinez stepped into the room with another officer. "We reviewed Mr. Garrison's footage," the deputy said, approaching. "We executed a search warrant and found the spray paint can exactly where he said. Mrs. Dunor, you're under arrest." That's how I ended up in the sheriff's office, watching Patricia get cuffed for her failed plot. Deputy Martinez was fascinated by the harassment pattern. Patricia had done this to 3 neighbors before, all had eventually moved away. "Mr. Garrison," the deputy said, "thank you for cooperating. The DA will contact you about charges. You might consider a restraining order in the meantime." I thanked him and headed home. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Several neighbors apologized for believing Patricia's lies and shared their own harassment stories. The next HOA meeting was very different. Gerald, looking relieved and younger by a decade, announced Patricia's immediate resignation from the board. He proposed scrapping half the strictest rules, starting with mailbox colors and grass height. The vote was unanimous. Patricia faced charges for filing a false police report, vandalism, and attempted fraud. Her lawyer tried a plea deal, but the DA, armed with 6 months of my evidence, pressed for maximum penalties. The trial was swift. My footage was crystal clear. Forensic experts confirmed it was authentic. Patricia's defense, that it was a social experiment testing security, fell flat, especially after the audio of her threats played in court. The judge wasn't amused. Patricia was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service cleaning graffiti, and fined $20,000. She also had to pay my legal fees and attend anger management classes. Best of all, the HOA permanently banned her from holding any office. The vote was unanimous, except for one abstention. Gerald, who looked torn. When the judge read the sentence, Patricia's face was priceless, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air before letting out a scream that probably scared every dog within 5 miles. "This isn't fair," she yelled as bailiffs escorted her out. "I was protecting property values. I was upholding standards. He's ruined everything I worked for." The judge slammed the gavel down hard. "Mrs. Dunor, that's an additional $5,000 fine for contempt of court."